Chapter 3 46-year-old Paul Edwards was fixing a leaky pipe in the basement of his house when the phone rang. At least he was doing his best, but a handyman he was not, and what had begun as a simple leak was fast becoming a flood. He glanced up briefly before returning to tightening the brass compression fitting. Might help if I cut the water first, he chided himself. Paul went to the main valve and twisted the blue handwheel until the dripping stopped. Voila. Whoever said he wasn't good with his hands, his wife would be proud. Upstairs, the phone was still screaming for his attention. After 8 rings, the voicemail would kick in. If it was important enough, whoever was calling would leave a message. No message meant they were probably a telemarketer. A call that usually went something like, "Hello, may I speak to Mr. Paul Edwards, please?" You got him. "Mr. Edwards, this is a courtesy call on behalf of Tri-America to let you know how you can lower your monthly interest rates. Thanks, but I already got that one covered. Don't borrow from the banks. Now it's my turn to ask you a question. You ever heard of the National Telemarketer No-Call List?" That was when the line usually went dead. Upstairs, the phone stopped ringing for barely a moment before it started up again. The only person who called back like that was Paul's wife, Susan, and the only time she did that was when there was an emergency. Heart beating a little quicker, Paul set the wrench down on top of the ladder, stepped down, and began heading upstairs. Susan was down in Atlanta, at Georgia State University, helping their daughter Autumn, a freshman, put the finishing touches on her new apartment. The week before, Paul had been down there himself, helping Autumn set up a giant stack of IKEA furniture, and he still had the calluses to prove it. Now it was Susan's turn to head down and work her own brand of magic. It also gave the girls an excuse to indulge in their favorite pastime, shoe shopping. But that wasn't a problem since Paul had learned to appreciate whatever alone time he could get. Besides, it would give him a chance to finally balance the books for his music store in Greenwood, Nebraska, and maybe even write a new song or two while he was at it. In the late 80s, Paul had been what his daughter would have called a celebrity, although back then rock star would have done just fine. Nowadays, another term had grown up to describe the meteoric rise and fall of Paul Edwards' career. One-hit wonder. Paul reached the cordless phone in the kitchen in the middle of the 5th ring. "Everything all right, honey?" Susan was out of breath. "Have you been watching the news?" Paul's heart was moving from a rapid thump into a full-blown gallop. "What's going on?" "Just to it." Crossing the room with the phone to his ear, Paul did as she said and switched on the TV. The station was set to ESPN, since that was what he'd been watching last night as he ate dinner alone. The Mets had been playing the Brewers. He flicked it over to a news channel. A woman holding a microphone stood beside a shipping container with what looked like Russian writing on the bow. "Authorities have begun to evacuate Seattle's main port after sensors detected high levels of radioactivity coming from one of the containers on board an incoming freighter. Originating from the Russian port of Vladivostok, the ship appears to be owned and operated by Dobraflot Shipping." Paul flipped the channel, but it didn't matter where he went, since all of them were covering the same story. The shipping lanes were America's Achilles heel. The Department of Homeland Security was taking measures to screen incoming cargo vessels for radioactive materials smuggled in by terrorists, intent on constructing a dirty bomb in American streets. But the prohibitive costs meant only a small percentage of cargo containers could be scanned. As usual, CNN was having a field day. Calls to the Russian shipping company weren't immediately returned. Still more puzzling to authorities is the identity of the captain and crew of the suspect vessel. All of them appear to be from the Middle Eastern country of Yemen. The phone wasn't next to Paul's ear anymore, but he could still hear the muffled sound of Susan speaking. "It's all right," he tried to tell her. "The feds have the ship. All they got to do now is pinpoint the container it's in." Those words had no sooner come out of his mouth when the screen lit up with a blinding flash of light. The reporter only had time to start turning her head before she disappeared, and the image cut back to a surprised anchorman. "Looks like we've lost the connection. We'll try to get that back up and—" The anchor's finger went to his ear. The producer was saying something, and Paul could see the tension building in the anchorman's facial features. "We're getting reports of an explosion in Seattle."